Hello and welcome to HCS Connects. I'm your host, Kelly Gorel. Today we've got the opportunity to meet the new leader, the principal of Mary S. Peake Elementary School, the home of the Mighty Oaks, Mr. Sharif Hicks. So welcome to HCS Connects.
Thank you.
And we are so glad that you are here and that you are now at the helm, no pun intended, of Mary Oak, I just said Mary Oak, of the Mighty Oaks.
Mighty Oaks.
Mighty Oaks, yes. Mary S. Peake Elementary School. So you've been in the position now for what, about a month?
Yeah, about a month.
Tell us what's happened in that month.
A lot. Full sprint. Filling vacancies, getting ready for pre-service, getting ready for the return of students. Just all the things that I would watch the principal do, it's now me doing. Mentoring your assistant principal, mentoring other teachers who want to be leaders as well. Getting to know staff, just trying to get the lay of the land and things of that nature.
So the old myth is that it's summer and that summer's slow and there's not a whole lot that goes on during the summer. So would you agree with that or disagree?
I agree, disagree. It's like it's slow because you don't have the pace of the school year. You don't have kids and teachers there. So that's the slow part. The fast part is the work that has to go into opening the school year.
Right.
Many people don't get to see the show of the opening part. They just see the first day of school and all the glitz and glamour and things of that nature. But it's a lot of phone calls, emails, meetings, documents, more documents, organization, things of that nature. So it's a growing battle, sitting at front of your computer, trying to nail things and make sure it's like perfect.
So no rest for the weary.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Mm-mm.
So you are coming from the Hampton High School. You were an academy principal there.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to being at Hampton High, you were an assistant principal at, was it Phoenix?
I was at Andrews,
you were at Andrews.
K-8, and prior to that, I was at Cary and then also at Bryan.
Okay, so you've had a very well-rounded experience from the elementary up to the high school, now back to the elementary.
I call it my world tour.
It's your world tour. You have had me since we started, so
Good.
This is great. So basically, you didn't start with Hampton City Schools, though, so tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, I'm from New Jersey. When I first graduated from Hampton University in 2003, I moved back home to live with my parents because I was broke.
You don't have that Jersey accent.
I don't?
No.
That's crazy. Wow. I must have been in Virginia way too long then. My friends will laugh at me when I get home.
And say y'all?
Yeah, y'all. I got a job as a long-term substitute teacher at Teaneck High School, and I worked there for a few months. The money wasn't where I thought it was because I was a naive kid thinking that, I needed to get paid. That's what...
They make millions.
That's what I thought. That was my initial thought in life. So I ended that job and I moved into marketing, where I worked for Verizon for 2 years doing advertisement. And I made the money that I wanted, but I wasn't happy. I didn't have the thrill of getting up in the morning and going to work. And so probably that June of 2005, had a conversation with my best friend who was a pharmacist, who was just a well put together individual. He was in a gospel group, Tidrebet, and he kind of talked to me about who I was. And for him, he always saw me as a teacher. He talked about how when we were in college, how I used to teach everybody how to step. I had a step team and things of that nature, and teaching people not just stepping, but just becoming real men. And that was my biggest thing. I wanted to become a man and to help other people to grow into that facet as well. So you always was a teacher. That's what you should do. And I said, well, I don't know what to do. He said, well, take the test. Isn't there a test? I said, yeah, it's a test. Take the test. So I took the test and I passed it. And began my journey to come down to Hampton University because not too far after that, he actually died in a car accident. I kind of went into a little bit of depression. I felt going back to Hampton University where I felt it was home. To learn a new skill set was the best thing for me. To get that skill set, hone that craft, and kind of dedicate this to him. His mother was an educator. So for me to come back to Hampton University and say, I'm dedicating this time to him, and I'm going to do what he did in college, which was have a 3.9 GPA. So I'm going to study like him because I didn't do that in undergrad, of course not. But in grad school, I took it serious. And it was the first time taking things as serious and I absolutely loved it, every minute of it. They actually wrote about me in the paper, in the Daily Press, because they heard about the story of the guardian angel helping someone find their calling. And that's where I started. Actually, during the whole grad school experience, I actually was instructional assistant in Newport News, pre-K. So that's where my pre-K stuff, everybody's like, where did you get this pre-K from? So I was actually in grad school and working at the same time. And I would come home to my friends and tell them all these stories about the kids who were coughing on me and sneezing on me. But it was always those great stories of picking someone up and teaching something to someone else. About not giving up and pursuing forward, because it was just not just about the letters and numbers and things, that colors and things that they're going to learn.
Right.
But it was those life skills that I could give them and those nuggets that kids will actually remember. And actually, a few years later, one of those kids I saw I think it was in the Hampton City Schools or whatever the case may be. I bumped into them. And they were in like 5th grade, and they're like, I remember you. I was like, you remember me? It was a preschool kid. I was like, wow, 4 or 5 years later, they still remember me.
You made your mark.
I did, and those are those moments where, I always tell people I'm always on. It's always Mr. Hicks. Everywhere I go, someone's yelling, Mr. Hicks, and it's like, oh, I'm on again.
You're always on.
I'm always on. So that's my motto. When I graduated, I actually went back home. I actually student taught in Hampton City Schools, actually. Hampton City Schools gets the credit of actually honing my skill set in the classroom. I student taught at Langley Elementary and Cary. But I went home because I wanted to go home. I'm from New Jersey, so I went home and actually taught at my middle school that I went to for a year. During that time period, I did get engaged. My wife is from Hampton City. She's a Kickingham graduate, a warrior. We're not gonna.
So there was no question you were going to come back at some point.
At some point, she, for her, she, couldn't be too far away from her mother and her family. But I made a deal with her. I said, why don't you move up to New Jersey? I have a job. You can go to NYU for grad school. So she actually did. She came up. I proposed. We got engaged. I got an apartment. I was saving money. She got up there. About 2 weeks, she gave me a call. I can't do this. I was like, you can't do this? What do you mean you can't do, like, us? No, I can't live here. I said, all right, well, I'm not ready to go back to Hampton because that's like hometown for you. That's, I don't know anybody. Let's go to Richmond. Why Richmond? But why not? Close enough to Hampton, but not.
It was a compromise.
It was a compromise. Because I wanted to make sure that, we were going to be okay. So I taught in Richmond for 2 years. I taught 4th grade and 5th grade at George Mason Elementary in Richmond. In the Churchill area, and that's where I kind of honed my skills. Richmond is I wouldn't say rough and tough, but that's the moniker they get. But I definitely learned how to become a teacher. They gave me the skill sets to how to manage and how to pursue instruction, and I got a lot of autonomy when it came to curriculum. Not knowing when I got to Hampton City Schools what curriculum writing was going to look like, but boy, I tell teachers all the time, it's like, you have no idea my life before, like not having anything at the touch of you, had to curate everything. So 2 years there, it was time to move to Hampton finally. But we moved to Newport News. It was close enough to Hampton, and that's when I got my job at Newport News, and I taught there for about 5 years. And during that time, I went back to school to ODU to get my leadership degree. And then I got a call from Hampton City Schools saying, hey, come in for an interview for an assistant principal position. I was excited about that. I got a chance to meet Dr. Haynes and Dr. Owens and Mr. Blow. They were the people who interviewed me, so they can take the claim for that moment in time. And
it's been history since?
It's been history since. Got the phone call about a month later because from Dr. Caggiano. I was actually in a nap. I remember that because he called me and said, hey, call me back. He was actually my professor. He was one of the influences to get me here because he kept on saying, like, you think about Hampton? I said, well, why not? Seems like a nice place. If you guys take me, sure. But then here I am.
Well, we're glad that you were willing to be taken.
Absolutely.
So Mary S. Peake,
yes.
Your first principalship.
Yes.
What are your goals as a new principal for this year?
First, to stay fully accredited. That's always the number one goal when you get into a position like that, is to maintain and keep growing. But second is to get kids back in the building and get them comfortable with learning. Right. Get our teachers comfortable with teaching. I'm always simple when it comes to core business. It's teaching and learning. I take that from Dr. Smith and I hone that. And being the leader, it's about making people feel comfortable with that process. Let's get back to normal as much as we can, of course. But I'm just looking forward to kids coming back in the building. They give me energy. I felt that in high school. That first semester with no kids in the building, it was like, I felt drained. It was like, why am I so tired? Until they came back. And when they start coming back, my energy level came back. It's something about being around kids for me that drives me every single day to wake up in the morning and do what I do, because it's for them.
Well, it's definitely a passion.
Definitely.
And education is not an easy job for our teachers, our administrators. So to hear that passion in your voice and talk about your stories of how you got here, you're definitely in the right place.
Definitely. Definitely. I definitely believe that.
So one last question for you.
Sure.
As your teachers are returning and your students are almost here, what is one thing you want them to know about Sharif Hicks?
My work ethic. I get that from my father. He was a truck driver. So for me, it's about just outworking, just putting the effort in every single day. I get up around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym before I even get to work. So it's about.
Do you sleep?
Do I sleep? It's a good question.
I said that was my last question, but I didn't need to know that. Do you sleep?
I sleep. I do.
Okay.
I don't sleep like normal people when it comes to 8 hours. I typically am around 5 to 6 hours. I'm on that Kobe Bryant, like, all right, you don't need but 4 or 5 hours of sleep and then you function. That's why when I take breaks, I take breaks.
Right.
But it's about my work ethic. I'm about the effort and trying to get the job done and doing my job. So I want people to know that about me, that I'm a tireless leader that's going to keep working until the job is done.
Because it's about every child, every day.
Every day, whatever it takes. Yep.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We are very much looking forward to the school year, and we will have to drop in and get some footage of you in your building with your kids and see how it's going.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on HCS Connects. And remember, it's easy to stay connected.